Welcome to Habeas Treasures, where I try to decipher this book, There's Treasure Inside by Jon Collins Black, in order to find one of the 5 hidden treasures. On today's episode, I'll be continuing my breakdown of the Pokemon Box chapter. Let's begin. On page 218, after teaming up with the Froakie, the author describes getting startled by a family of raccoons. He writes, "Just a little way in, I heard a rustling noise coming from some leaves. I jumped back, convinced that I had just seen 3 obstagoon climbing a tree, but the Froakie just laughed. Those are raccoons. Adjusting my eyes, I breathed a sigh of relief as I saw a mother raccoon and her 2 offspring peering at me from about 7 feet up a large oak tree." Okay, so there's a lot here. Let's break it down. After researching raccoons, I learned that a group of raccoons is called a gaze. But a mother raccoon with her babies, like the author describes in the story, goes by a different name, a nursery. Now this got me excited. I think the author is using the family of raccoons to point us to a business that sells plants and trees, which is called a nursery. But which one? It turns out there are actually quite a few nurseries in New Orleans. I figured in order to narrow it down, the author probably used other words in the story to provide some additional clues. Here are the ones that I found that could be clues. The Froakie just laughed, adjusting my eyes, breathed, the number 7, and large oak tree. One New Orleans garden store fit all these clues. It's called Laughing Buddha Nursery. Now it makes sense that the author would include a reference to Buddhism in the Pokemon Box chapter, since it is one of the 2 major religions in Japan, along with Shinto. And the story so far has a lot of Japanese references, like the Japanese puzzle box, the Natsuki figures, and Pokemon itself. I think the author is using the phrases adjusting my eyes and breathed a sigh of relief as a reference to meditation. We know this practice is important to him because on page 69 in the book he writes, "Over the last 10 years, I have found deep and intense inspiration through meditation." And meditation is a fundamental practice of Buddhism. And finally, the number 7 has special meaning in Buddhism because there are 7 stages on the journey towards enlightenment. And even though the Buddha sat under a fig tree, not an oak trees in general are often associated with strength, longevity, and stability in various cultures, which aligns with the Buddhist concept of the enduring nature of enlightenment. And if you think I got that last part from AI, trust your instincts. Okay, so where is the Laughing Buddha Nursery? Well, it's way over here in relation to the other clue locations that I found, like Elk Place and the Spotted Cat Music Club and the Crown and Anchor English Pub. It's kind of far away. But here's where it gets really interesting. In addition to selling organic gardening supplies like soil, fertilizer, and seeds, Laughing Buddha Nursery is also a farmer-owned local grocery, and they partner with local businesses to provide convenient pickup locations for the items that you order. And the first pickup location on their website is on Algiers Point at Beatrix Bell Handcrafted Jewelry. It's located here, very close to the Crown and Anchor English Pub. Now, this could be a coincidence, but I'm actually inclined to think it's a clue for a couple of more reasons. First, look at what you can purchase at Beatrix Bell Jewelry. All sorts of insect-inspired pieces like these dragonfly and cicada earrings. Maybe this is why the author makes references to several Yanma and Ninjask everywhere, since these Pokemon were modeled off of dragonflies and cicadas. And in the story, when the Froakie abandons the author, he does so by jumping over the leaves. What is that about? Who jumps over leaves? I wonder if this is a play on words, and what he's really alluding to by writing leaves is the levee that runs along the water's edge at Algiers Point. Also, in the story, the Froakie corrects the author by explaining to him that the obstagoon Pokemon look more like badgers than raccoons. Well, using similar logic to the raccoons, a family of badgers is called a seat. This might be another play on words, because on Algiers Point, near the pub and the jewelry store, is the Cita Dennis Hubble Library, which was one of the original Carnegie libraries in New Orleans. I think all these clues on Algiers Point may be leading us to this library location, and here's why. If you look at all the major clue locations that I've identified in my previous videos, they are all near libraries, and many of them are near the original Carnegie Library locations in the city. Here's what I mean. The Spotted Cat Music Club that I covered in my Simpsons-themed episode is located on the corner of Frenchman and Royal Streets near Washington Square. This happens to be the same corner where the Royal Street Library opened in 1907. The Royal Street Library was one of the 5 original Carnegie libraries in New Orleans. The Algiers Point Library, now called the Cita Dennis Hubble Library, also opened that same year, another Carnegie library. Now, Elk Place, which I've tied to where the author originally recruits the Froakie, is right across the street from the main New Orleans library. Now, this one isn't an original Carnegie library, but it does have this interesting path shown on Google Maps that matches up to the design on the Pokemon coin. And finally, if you watch my video where I explain that I think there are clues to the Pokemon box in the introduction to part 2 of the book, you will remember the Knights of Chaos parade route. I think this route is what the author is referring to when he writes, "A little order was needed to quell the potential chaos." Well, the start of the parade route is at the corner of Napoleon Avenue and Magazine Street, where you guessed it, another original Carnegie library is located. This library is called the Children's Resource Center Library. So now the big question is, what should we do with the 4 library locations in different parts of the city? Well, since the treasure book has a giant X on it, let's use the 4 locations to create our own X. Now, is the treasure hidden near the center of the X? Maybe. I looked. I didn't find it there. But you never know. Maybe you'll have better luck than I did. All right, one thing that I think could really help pinpoint the location of the treasure is determining who the wise golem was that helped the author hide the treasure on page 219. And I've got good news for you. That's what I'll be tackling on my next video.